Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arseholics podcast. We're recording on a Monday night. It's the bank holiday weekend here in the UK. So all of us have had a pretty busy one. And it's been a couple of days since Arsenal played. But, you know, it's a great feeling. Just like every other episode that we've done this season, we're recording after a victory. We didn't record after Bournemouth, so I guess we're recording after a double victory. It feels good. It feels great. I've got Aaron in with me. I've got Mize. Hello, boys. How's it going?
Good, man.
Yeah, good.
How are you?
Good, feeling good. Excited to talk about this. We just played Fulham. We won 2-1 at the Emirates. It was a great way to start the long weekend. It was weird because it was a game where usually the three of us probably would have ended up having a really big night because it's a Saturday late kickoff, 5:30 kickoff, which meant, you know, as you can imagine, for anyone who wasn't at the game, so many people probably arrived early in the area, got pretty tagged up. By the time Arsenal kicked off, we're already in a pretty merry place. And then we had this game, which it didn't really look. We didn't know if it was going to go our way or exactly was this going to be the game that we finally didn't win. But we did in the end, and obviously the jubilation and the feeling in the ground was amazing. And it's a sort of game where I think that if we didn't all have other plans, we probably would have ended up having a really, really late one. And I'm sure a lot of other Arsenal fans around the ground had big nights because it was another just great day at the Emirates, wasn't it, guys? I mean, Aaron, and how does that rank from kind of recent memories at the Emirates?
Yeah, I know it sounds really stupid because, yeah, we all know it was a home game against Fulham, right? And it's not one we're going to tell our kids about, right, or anything like that. Yeah, remember that home 2-1 win against Fulham. But the atmosphere in the ground throughout the whole game, but especially when we went behind, was really, really good. It was just a reflection of, you know, the way the home fans feel about this team and where we are on this journey. You know, there was no negativity in the ground. Everyone really believed that, you know, we were playing well and then we went behind and it was like, okay, right, we're going to have to do something that we haven't done before in a long, long time, which was come from behind and win when we've gone behind in the second half. I think I saw a stat to say it's the first time we've gone behind in the second half and then come back to win since 2013. So almost 10 years, right? And we did it. And yeah, it's a home game against Fulham. It's a game we should have won. But you can't not be happy, ecstatic when we go and win a game from behind. And I think we got the winner with like 5 minutes to go. Quality, honestly, I had a really, really good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miles, the celebration police have been out in force, haven't they? Richard Keys, Andy Gray, the two disgraced UK pundits, if you like, effectively kicked out the country and not allowed on UK TV anymore, were pretty critical. And I think they were the main people who were critical about the fact that we were celebrating, a win against, lowly Fulham almost in their subtext, right? A team that, we're allegedly supposed to beat every day of the week. And apparently this would never have happened under Wenger. It would never have happened under big managers, etc. And apparently Arteta and the team over-celebrated, and it's a sign of how far we've fallen. I mean, what do you think about that, mate?
I mean, there's been a few occasions where I don't know if this seems to be a bit of an Arsenal thing, where I think was it Wolves last season, similar kind of thing. We got criticised for celebrating. I think it might have been a late win. Yeah, I mean, look, people have got to say stuff that makes headlines, right? And people have got to say stuff that draw attention to them, to the media outlets that they're promoting. And I think that's pretty much it. That's all I put it down to. Richard Keys and Andy Gray, their opinion personally doesn't really mean that much to me. They've obviously given us some amazing commentary, Andy Gray, especially in the kind of, I don't know, early 2000s, whenever it was, like that Premier League era. But yeah, not too relevant for me. I mean, look, I don't know what people expect. No matter who the opposition is, as everyone keeps saying, the Premier League is the toughest league in the world. Every Premier League game is a tough game, i.e. there are no easy games. So to win a game, having gone behind, as Aaron has said, and to win it with a few minutes to go, we went behind in the second half, right? So we didn't have that long to come back. And I think it just illustrates, I think it illustrates really not so much how far we've fallen, but how far we've come since, I think, because we hit the lowest point in recent times. Our lowest point was probably back at or lowest points, probably back end of Wenger, and then under Unai Emery, there were some really, really bad times. And I think it just shows kind of how far we've climbed back up to the point that it's not so much about celebrating a win like that. It's more what happened, as Aaron has said, what happened after we went 1-0 down, how the crowd responded, how the crowd really helped the team kind of start again, essentially, and really kind of just help the team come back into that game, and really helped Gabriel as well. Same thing happened with Saliba a couple of weeks ago against Leicester when he scored the own goal. So I think it's just that, very obvious growth in the connection between fans, players, manager. And I think that's what everyone was celebrating at the final whistle on
I lost his video
on Saturday.
Yeah, and also there's something to be said for the fact that there's a period of time, right, where a lot of these old pundits are referring to where actually you could almost say if a good team plays a worse team, the good team wins, right? Like, it was often a case where a team who had a better 11 players beat the team who didn't, had a worse 11 players. And football's it's evolved so much. It's evolved so much further than even from when, we were supporting Arsenal in the 90s when, Wenger kind of turned up and Arsenal started winning under Wenger. Things have changed a hell of a lot since then. And it's just this massive oversimplification, I find, right, when a lot of pundits seem to lean on some of that kind of old assumptions around the fact that, if you are a more established team playing a weaker team, there's almost nothing worth celebrating over winning. It should be something that you just kind of almost shake hands, walk off the pitch, and it's done. The fact is, this Fulham side got promoted, and like Nottingham Forest have done, and like many other promoted teams have done, they've gone and strengthened. They've got a lot of good players. They've spent money, like newly promoted clubs do spend money, and they're a decent team who took points off Liverpool on opening day of the season. So it's almost disrespectful, I find, to not celebrate. And but Aaron, with the game itself, when we were talking about this before kickoff, we talked about how it might be a difficult game because Fulham have been playing some quite good stuff over the last, over the first 3 games, some quite attacking stuff, and they might really come at us. For me, the game panned out a little bit differently in practice, and it felt like their tactics were a little bit different for that. Were you surprised in any way as to how the game itself played out?
Yeah, a bit, I think. I think that we predicted it would be close. I think I said it would be 1-0, for example, to us. And I think this is one of those things that when you sleep on it and you reflect on the game the next day, I kind of actually look back on it and realise that actually we were really dominant in that game. Fulham never really looked like scoring, except for that one, freak incident where Gabriel lost the ball and Mitrovic took the goal really well. But there's, in another day, if we weren't so wasteful with our final ball, we could have scored maybe 1 or 2 in the first half, come out and scored maybe a third, and it could have potentially been a comfortable game. The only reason it kind of was tense and nervy was because we just had one of those games where nothing really went right for us. But we dominated the ball and actually thought we played really well. And the goal just gave us that injection and that urgency that was probably lacking in the first half.
Agreed. And on that kind of dominant point, it's really interesting you say that, because I think when we were watching the game in the stadium, I don't think it did feel at times like we were as dominant as we were. If we look at the stats, right, you very rarely get a stat where every stat suggests you were dominant, right? But we had 72% of the possession, which is huge. Team, you don't normally get above 70% of possession. 22 shots versus 11, almost double the amount of touches, almost 3 times as many passes. 9 corners versus 2. Or everything points to the fact that we were incredibly dominant. But it did feel, though, in that first half that, Arsenal were a little bit second gearish. Did you feel that much? Did you feel that there was something that we weren't doing in the first half that we then kicked off in the second half?
Yeah, it's interesting, the stats that you pointed out, because I've not seen the stats post-game, and I didn't realise it was as kind of one-sided stats-wise as the numbers you've just sort of explained show. But it didn't really feel like that sort of game in being at the game. Maybe on TV it was a different experience. But yeah, while we were there watching it, it didn't really feel like we were really, really testing Leonard. I think the second half there was more of a push for us to score, obviously, especially having gone 1-0 down as well. But yeah, I don't really feel like the stats. I don't really feel like the game itself really felt like while I was watching it that we were as dominant as that. I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if you guys agree based on your experience watching it.
I think the other thing to mention is obviously we lost Partey and Zinchenko right out of the first 11 quite late, and I think the first half was probably a reflection of that. I think Tierney came in, Elneny came in, and whilst neither of them were terrible, I think Tierney especially just took a while to just get up to speed. He didn't look like he was fully integrated into this well-oiled machine that we were kind of rolling with in the first 3 games, and that was a challenge. But again, I thought actually you took out 2 of probably our best players who have had in terms of form this season so far. There's there's something to be quite pleased about, to say actually, like, we had 2 people come in and we still managed to dominate possession, and yes, it's Fulham, but we still managed to come away with the win. Like, that was probably not planned for. I doubt we planned to roll with Tierney and Elneny in the game, but we made it work.
You still expect, though, right? Sorry, go on, Mike.
I was just going to ask as well, because the interesting thing about Tierney coming in, obviously it sounded like a fairly last minute change, but Tierney coming in, we didn't really change the system too much to accommodate him. Obviously 2 different types of left backs, right? Zinchenko and Tierney, and we've seen how Tierney operates best in this team, or at least for Arsenal. And I don't know, I was just interested to get your thoughts, because obviously when you've got a left-sided player like Martinelli in front of you, it's probably quite hard for Tierney to play his normal game as well, I guess, because Martinelli's so direct. He's always kind of trying to get down he comes inside and he goes outside, but he often gets down to the byline on that left-hand side, and possibly quite hard for a player like Tierney who likes to overlap to do that. But I didn't feel like we changed the system at all to accommodate Tierney, which is fair enough, but I'm not sure. I don't think he obviously didn't have the best game. He did look maybe it was just a bit of lack of match fitness, or being ready in terms of playing matches. But how did you guys think he did in the system?
Well, I felt that the difficult thing to assess initially is how much of it was planned in any way, right? But in the sense that, when did the injuries become apparent? Were these really last minute, where we had prepared a certain way to play against Fulham and this was the game plan, and then suddenly these injuries happen, suddenly you're just subbing in Elneny and Tierney, and if, at that point it's probably quite difficult to change your game plan, right? Say if they were really last minute, but if they were a little bit earlier, then maybe Arteta would have had the choice to make as to whether he changed game plan. And like you correctly pointed out, it didn't actually look like we did. It looked like he was still we were still playing Tierney as a more of an inverted fullback than maybe he's normally used to. And then I think the other thing that makes it difficult to assess exactly what was planned and how it worked and whether it was well executed is actually that Tierney was his first start, since he's been out, etc. And I agree with you that it wasn't the Tierney of old. So even the times where he was going down the left, trying to be, in certain moves that we were doing where he was doing that traditional overlapping fullback kind of role, it didn't really seem like it was the same Tierney. It seemed like he just that kind of half a second slower, maybe that edge wasn't quite there. So I think it was quite hard to tell in that respect. I mean, Aaron, and I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I don't think the instruction was for Tierney to be old school Kieran Tierney, if we can call it that. I think he was asked to. I don't know if it was to replicate what Zinchenko does, but it's certainly a much more reserved version of what Kieran Tierney does. And I think that primarily is because Martinelli's role has always been to be that widest midfielder in the front, 4 or 5. And, we often saw the play build up on the right-hand side, and then we'd try and switch it to Martinelli and try and get him in behind, right? And Kieran Tierney was nowhere near the ball in any of those situations. So I assume it was quite deliberate to say, actually, you stay back because we need you either in the middle or in a more traditional left back position. But no, I think it's very rare that we've seen Tierney and Martinelli, like you said, Myers, work well, because they both occupy the same sort of attacking spaces in that sense. And maybe it's the case that actually, if we see Tierney, we might see someone like Smith Rowe or even Vieira on that left-hand side, because that is potentially what gets the best out of Kieran Tierney. But I think, you have to kind of choose. Do you want the best out of Kieran Tierney in that attacking left-wide role, or do you want Gabriel Martinelli feeling comfortable and doing what he's doing? And I think it makes sense in that sense to prioritise getting the best out of Martinelli, because that's his game. That's what he needs to do. That's what we need him to do there.
Yeah, might as well with the other switch in, right, with El Neni coming in. A lot of people who have analysed the game since have talked about how actually El Neni was playing a really important role in cutting off the passing lanes to Mitrovic, and potentially in that way, therefore, really destabilising what Fulham have done quite well in their first few games. So maybe the way the game panned out, and as I mentioned initially, I was quite surprised in how it seemed that Fulham weren't really trying to get on the front foot. And perhaps much of that was because of this role that El Neni was playing to kind of, again, get in the way and destabilise that channel. But this being said, at the beginning of the game, and I suppose since, many people have been surprised with El Neni's inclusion in the team, given that you've got Sambi Lokonga, who is someone that was signed, right, is clearly someone for the future to some degree, but came with quite a lot of reputation to some degree. Vincent Kompany said nice things about this guy. He's meant to be a real talent, and one for the future with Belgium. We saw lots of flashes of good things last season, and there were times where he struggled towards the back end of the season, and we can talk for ages as to why we may have thought those things happened. But the fact of the matter is, we're playing at home against Fulham. We've won 3 on the bounce, and Thomas Partey is out of the team, and it would seem on paper to many that actually it's a great opportunity to put Lokonga in. Were you surprised, Mize, at the fact that he didn't play in? And if you were surprised, what do you think that means for the role that he has to play this season, or how Arteta might see him?
I wasn't that surprised, to be honest. So when I saw El Neni's name, obviously I was surprised to see El Neni because none of us were aware there were those couple of injuries. But I wasn't that surprised that he's gone for El Neni, just purely because, we say it every time he's in the team, or when we assess the squad, you just know what you're going to get from him, and he's a pretty dependable 7 out of 10 type player. He's not extravagant. He's not going to offer you the kind of forward passing and passing through the lines and taking the ball out of tight spaces and probably beating a man like Thomas Partey does. But he offers you a fair bit of stability, and he can stick to a game plan, and he can be disciplined. So I think even though it's Fulham at home, and on paper, promoted side, a game you should be winning, I think maybe I'm just speculating. Maybe it's just Arteta having learned a little bit from last season, and just having gone through the experience of last season with the youngest squad, the youngest team in the league, he's just being a little bit more cautious when it comes to maybe some of these changes and how he uses the squad, and maybe. It happened with Tavares as well, right? Like Tavares had to come in probably a fair bit more than we would have liked. And you saw how raw he was. And despite a player having potential and having a reputation and, coming with a reputation and having kind of like glowing reports from pretty good players in the game, as it were, or ex-players, I don't think that necessarily means that they should just get a starting berth when a central midfielder is injured or when Thomas Partey is injured. So I guess, I think maybe Arteta's just, being a little bit more cautious after what happened last season. We saw how the inexperience cost us a little bit, or cost us quite a bit, to be honest, especially at the back end of last season. And he's just maybe thinking, okay, all we need to do is Fulham at home, but a couple of unexpected injuries, things are going well, but all we need to do is just get the win and move on to the next. And maybe he went for that option. And I think when Raj, you just asked the question about his role in the team for this season and going forward. I mean, that's an interesting one because, for me, I feel like he's more of a box-to-box central midfielder as opposed to a deep-lying midfielder. Like, I think he can do both sides of the game, basically. And I guess when you lose Thomas Partey, if you cut, your next best option, as you say, kind of what El Neni brought to the game was more defensively minded, cutting off the passing lanes, being disciplined in that position. I think we might see, maybe not, it depends on if we sign anyone, but we might see Lokonga obviously we're going to see him in Europe in the cup competitions. We might see if there's a Xhaka issue, injury, suspension, maybe that's when Lokonga might come in. I mean, I know there's quite a few options to go into that position, but that's maybe when we might see Lokonga, because, like I said, I think he's a bit more of a box to box, and I think he offers quite a lot going forward as well. So, yeah.
But if we do, let's just say, Lokonga is someone who is perhaps not necessarily seen as someone who can do the Xhaka role. Let's just say if that's not how Arteta sees him, because let's bear in mind that you've got Emile Smith-Rowe and you've got Fabio Vieira, who seem like players who can play centrally and they can, if needed to, maybe play in that number 8 role. Because, from recalling with Zambi, I think whenever he's played for Arsenal thus far, it's never been an incredibly progressed role. So he's not been someone who's been in the final third necessarily. So, I mean, is this a case where it is age? Is it not better for him to be getting minutes? Should he not be going on loan somewhere if he's ultimately, going to be, I guess, third fiddle to Thomas Partey and maybe not even necessarily being played in a more advanced central midfield role? Aaron, what do you think about that?
I know people have been talking about playing Lokonga in a number 8, but like, what do you base it off? Because we just haven't seen him play that much, to be honest. And this is my concern: is
he did a bit in pre-season, I think. He scored in pre-season from getting into the box. Like, I mean, small sample size, but I know what you mean. But he's only been with us a season. And he's just basically come in when we've had a midfielder injured. So
yeah, and I think that the jury's still out on him, to be honest. I mean, I've not seen anything amazing from him. He's shown flashes where he can do the kind of Thomas Partey type role and do Thomas Partey type things, but there are very few people in the Premier League that can do what Thomas Partey can do, right? Because that's such a high bar. But I think we obviously bought him with the idea of probably being that guy in 2 or 3 years' time, but he has struggled in games as well, and this is my concern: is what is the plan for him? I think the plan is Europa League this year, see him develop, get him to January, let's just see what he's like in these games. Where can he actually, play 90 minutes for us in a game? Maybe not against top Premier League opposition, but Europa League opposition, and see how he does. I think, I was a bit disappointed because I always want to see us play young players. But like you said, Miles, I think Arteta's probably thought, actually, I'm just going to go with a little bit more experience here of El Neni. And I thought El Neni had a really good game. But yeah, with Lokonga, I think we've just got to wait and see if he can step up, because the insights we've seen so far have been a bit sporadic, and we've seen good parts, but we've also seen some areas where he's been a bit concerning. And I think, if we had to I think he's probably on that same category as Tavares was, which is there are undoubtedly some very, very good parts, but does Arteta trust him enough just yet? I'm not so sure.
Talking about trust, Fabio Vieira still hasn't got on the pitch, and obviously he has been injured. We know that he didn't play a moment of pre-season, so it's understandable that they're not rushing him. It's not just a player like Tierney or Tomiyasu who's coming back from injury. This is a guy who's coming back from injury and has never played with this team before ever. So it's understandable that perhaps it's a little bit slower. But Mize, again, I guess maybe similar to your comment about Lokonga, do you think that Arteta sees the best way of perhaps managing Vieira to just get him through in Europa League games and not rely on him so much in these kind of initial kind of exchanges, if you like, in the Premier League, where he's got some players who perhaps know the drill a little bit better? Do you see that a similar path for him in that way?
It's an interesting one, because I was quite surprised he didn't come on against Bournemouth, to be honest. I think he was on the bench, right? And I think he had just come back into the squad, or just come into the squad for the first time. I was quite surprised he didn't just get 5 minutes or so, considering how comfortable the game was. I guess Saturday was a little bit different because we were chasing a goal with not long to go. So it makes sense as to why he didn't come on for his debut. It wouldn't have been the right game. Maybe it would have been if we were desperate for a goal, and maybe if it was still 1-1 going into literally the last couple of minutes, then maybe we would have seen him. Who knows? But I think quite an interesting thing with Arteta is he's not really taken much of a shine to this 5 subs rule yet. I can't remember exactly how many subs he's made in the 4 games so far, but I think even on Saturday, he basically turned to Nketiah. No Smith Rowe, no Vieira. Not sure who else was on but Marquinhos was on the bench. Didn't go to him. So quite interesting. So it's not just him. Smith Rowe didn't come on, and we haven't seen much of Smith Rowe at all this season. That's really surprising considering how kind of important he was for us last season and how.
Yeah. So just to recap, sorry, just on the side, I just have it on my screen now. To the subs on the weekend, it's exactly how you say it. He brought on Eddie on the 61st minute. And then his next sub was on the 89th minute, bringing on Tomiyasu, and then the 95th minute, bringing on Holding.
Yeah. So I'm not. Again, not concerned, not too worried. I think it's probably quite a good thing that we're grinding out results, or not just grinding out results, but playing well and winning games, not having to rely on some of the squad players that we are going to have to rely on, obviously later on in the season, and like you say for the Europa League game. So no, I'm itching to see him, obviously, because he's coming with a pretty good reputation in terms of once you look him up and see the kinds of things that he does on the ball and how exciting he is as a player. Really, really looking forward to seeing him. And I think the other interesting thing is now we're going into a week where we've obviously got essentially 3 games in a week or 3 games in 8 days. So there's probably a need for rotation, or more of a need for rotation than there has been so far in the season, where we've been playing once a week, and then Europa League the following week. So I can definitely see a couple of changes, and maybe someone like Smith Rowe comes in for one of the next couple of games. Maybe Vieira comes in, who knows? But not really too worried about it. I just find it quite interesting that Arteta hasn't really used those, 3 subs on Saturday, for example. He hasn't really maxed out those 5 subs yet.
I think he did. We did bring on 5 against Bournemouth, perhaps.
Okay,
I think.
Yeah.
But then again, that was when we were quite comfortably in the lead, right? So, but you're right. I think it was. When we went 1-0 down, I was like, I think I said to you, I was like, who's he going to bring on, right? And I think Nketiah was the obvious one. It's clear that he trusts Nketiah now to come on and help us change the game. But I don't know how much he trusts anyone else on that bench to come on. Or more, is he willing to take off someone like Saka, someone like Martinelli, someone like Jesus, in order to bring on someone like Smith Rowe? And I don't think he does trust. I don't think he wants to lose that, because he thinks, actually, I might get someone who can get in the box in Smith Rowe, for example. But whatever the substitutes outside of Eddie bring probably isn't enough for him versus having Jesus or Martinelli or Saka on the pitch. And that's something that we might want to discuss this later on, which is like, actually, do we need to add someone to the squad who can come on if Saka isn't doing it, if Martinelli isn't doing it, if Smith Rowe isn't seen to be enough of a goal threat? And who is that sub that we can bring on? Because we have lost Pepe now. Not that kind of Arteta trusted Pepe that much, but with that role, that attacking wide player sub who can really change the game, we don't yet have. And I kind of felt that a bit when we went 1-0 down.
But with this rotation, I think maybe an interesting thing to think about as well is the World Cup being when it is poses so many really interesting dynamics. And one of those things I wonder, right, is that when you've got a squad and you're trying to manage a normal season, part of the reason why you rotate early isn't necessarily because you think you're going to get an injury early. It's because you want to keep people fit for the season in its entirety. You basically don't want to burn someone out by March and then have them kind of drop dead for your last couple of months. Do you think that some of these managers are effectively thinking, well, do you know what? We don't even know who's going to get called up to their World Cup squads. And even the ones that do get called up to their World Cup squads, we don't know how well their teams are going to do. So is one thought process just kind of saying, well, forget it. Just play your best team all the time. Don't even think about resting them for your longevity in the season. Do play whoever you want to win the games that in however way you need to. And then basically get to the World Cup, see who gets called up, and then manage fitness however you need to in that way. There's a chance that you basically end up with a bunch of players who don't do anything for about a month, and that you have to just, that are just training and doing light training and fitness. And you've got some players, again, who'll go to the World Cup and not do very much. Do you think that's playing a part, Miles? Do you think managers could be thinking about that?
They're going to have to be, or surely we'll be thinking about it, right? I mean, it's such a weird season in that sense, first time ever, right? So they must be thinking about it. How do we best manage the fitness of these players, especially the ones that we know are likely to be going to go away. I mean, the thing is, I think you've got to play the odds, right? So, someone like Saka, for example, unless he's not fit, I mean, even if he has a fairly big dip in form, I'd still say, I'd be confident he's going to make the squad, the England squad. So I think, they're probably looking at the 20 or so players and, the squad, sorry. And, you could probably take a fair guess at who's going to make the squad and who's not, or who's going to make their squads and who's going to be travelling and who's not. And there might be a couple that are 50-50s. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. I hadn't really considered it. I don't know, because you could look at it the other way and say, like Saka as a good example. Well, play Saka almost every game from now until the World Cup. So from now until November, then he does go away with England and he does play the majority of games, and England progress quite far into the tournament. And then he comes back in January and he's basically buggered. Is that a good position to be in? So, and it's obviously not. So I guess they're going to have to just look at who's the most likely ones to be travelling or going to the World Cup and basing it on that. I mean, I think it's still quite early in the season as well, right? So, it can change so quickly. One injury to a player and they're out for a few weeks and it changes all of your plans. So I don't know how far ahead, like, I don't know how, you just have to be so flexible with it, right? Like, can't really put anything, there's nothing set in stone. You can't obviously can't predict what's going to happen in the next game and the next few games.
Yeah, agreed. Let's change let's change focus slightly, right? Let's just all for a second imagine we're all on the beach and we've got our feet up, we've got a cocktail, and the sun's shining. We haven't got a care in the world, and we're just here reflecting on the fact that we've won 4 out of 4. We've got 12 points. We're on top of the league. And let's cast our mind back to the beginning of the season when we were talking about our predictions and how we thought things were going to go and all that kind of stuff. Now, firstly, I think I don't even need to come to you guys to know the fact that I think we're all really happy and in from terms of points wise, it couldn't be going any better. But are there things that you're reflecting on now, in a more positive way, or in a not getting too carried away way? I guess what I'm asking is, when you just look at these 4 games, forget necessarily the points on the board necessarily, forget what it actually says. And if we just think about what's happened and how it's happened, Aaron, what have you maybe learned about this team that you didn't know before, or what are you feeling now that perhaps has been reinforced? Any thoughts? I think the floor is yours.
The one thing I was looking for in this first period of games was to work out, are we better than we are last year? Like, we knew the transfer dealings were better. We knew from a squad point of view we were better. But was that going to translate to the pitch? And what did that mean, right? And in reality, that means, is our defence better? And are we looking likely to score more goals? And I can, based on these first 4 games, you can probably unequivocally say yes. I think our attack looks considerably better. We look like we're creating a lot more chances. We're scoring a lot more goals. I think we're level on goal difference with City and Liverpool, or at least close, and that includes Liverpool's bloody 9-0 win, right? So we're doing all right. We're keeping up with the big 2 in that sense, and our defence also, from a numbers point of view, I think if you look at our expected goals conceded, we're number 2 in the league so far. So. The opposition has been kind, and we haven't faced a top team yet, but we can only beat what's in front of us, and these aren't easy yet. Bournemouth aside, Palace away, Palace are doing really well, right? Fulham are doing really well. Leicester, hit and miss, fine, but we can only beat what's in front of us, and so far we haven't even looked like dropping points. Like, it's not even come close to looking like we're going to drop points. These aren't like scrappy 1-0s, like, where we've just had a moment of brilliance and won the game. We have been the better team in every single game, and we've pretty much dominated every single game, Palace aside to a certain extent. I think we've leveled up, right? The question is, like, what level are we at now? We don't know. We're gonna run with this and see, and we're gonna learn a lot in especially in October. I think the fixtures toughen up, but we'll go to Old Trafford in a week and we'll learn a bit there. But we are undoubtedly better. Now it's just a question of like, okay, we were a little bit last season. We were very, very close to top four, right? Hopefully now we've kind of crossed that line, and we are now a top four team. And I really hope we start to act like it and deliver on it.
Well said, Mice. Anything to add on that?
No, I pretty much agree with Aaron. And yeah, I think the most interesting thing for me was, how did we react, even though it's, after a couple of months of, a couple of months off, but how would we react to what happened at the back end of last season, right? What's the mentality of this team and this squad going to be like? How does Arteta, we all saw it on All or Nothing, right? So, the last game of the season and the last couple of games of the season, especially the post Newcastle and post Spurs games. And yeah, how did the team come back this season and kick off the season? And obviously, look, we're sort of doing everything that's asked of us or being asked of us at the moment. There's obviously some big tests to come. But you know what? Look, if we keep beating all the teams we should be beating, it puts us in an amazing position for top four at least. So yeah, still early days though. Feet on the ground. Let's see how things progress over the next few weeks.
Agree, and for me, some of the positives are really in the detail. I think that winning four's lovely. I think, like you said, Aaron, and one big thing that I really like about this is that we have been the better team in those 4 games. So say what you want about, the quality of the opposition. And in fairness, actually, I remember The Athletic at the beginning of the season, they did an article on, and they analysed everyone's starts to the season and stuff. And they gave every fixture a certain score, and effectively we came out as having the easiest start to the season as any out of every team in the league. So in that respect, fine. Respecting that, then you'd hope if there was anyone who was going to win 4 games, and it may have been us, and we have, fine. But when we look at the better side, I think the thing that the couple of things that I've actually been encouraged with is, firstly, we've conceded 3 goals, and if you look at those 3 goals, Saliba's one is a complete freak that will probably never happen in his career again. Gabriel's was, again, just something that we probably won't see him do that again this season. And let's just say, even if he does, say if every defender does that once this season, they don't all necessarily get punished. So it's relatively freak, both of those. And the third, was again, against Leicester, where you could probably say that Ramsdale should have done better, and even him after the game said it was probably his mistake. Now, for me, I like that. What it says to me is our defensive organisation is phenomenal. If we've conceded 3 and 2 have been complete freaks, and the third is still, you probably think the goalkeeper should do better. I'm phenomenally encouraged by that. I know, again, the strength of the opposition is something, but Palace has shown they're no mugs. Leicester, although they can't defend, are an okay attacking outfit. And Fulham have of course some surprises. So I think as one element is the defensive organisation, which I'm really encouraged about, and I guess we'll see that tested a bit more as we play some better teams. The other thing, though, right, is, I mean, you talked about how our attacking play is significantly improved. I completely agree. We've talked about on other episodes about how Gabriel Jesus has transformed almost us in some ways. Completely agree with that as well. But what is really cool, right, is that we've scored 11 goals this season, and 2 of those 11 have been from Gabriel Jesus. And Saka, who was our top scorer last season, hasn't scored. Right? So actually, it's really cool, because you think at some point Saka is going to, come into, he's probably just there's something that may be just lacking at the moment, but he'll come back and he'll start scoring goals. Top scorer again from last season. Gabriel Jesus will score more goals. He'll probably end up scoring a high proportion of our goals. But it still feels like, overall, the net positive of our attack, like you were alluding to, Aaron, it's just improved. We're less reliant on any one person. Other phenomenal kind of bits of detail that I was, reading about, again, The Athletic did a great piece on this, is around how, if you look at a lot of teams, and if you look at Arsenal last season, teams tended to have one area of focus in the pitch over a kind of generally in all games. They either used to generally attack from the left, attack through the centre, or attack through the right. Yeah, teams tend to be biased on one of those sides, and Arsenal, we're also, I think, towards the right hand side this season. This season, every game has been a different area, right? Which says to me that Arteta is now going, I've got a team and I've got everyone ready. Everyone knows what they're doing. I've got no weak links here. I can do whatever I want in any game now. I can do the things that I desire to do, right? I can make it very hard for teams to plan against us. If something's not really working in the game, I'll do something slightly different. I've got faith in that. So those little details I'm so intrigued about as to see how they play out for the rest of the season. And that for me, in a way, is even more important than the fact that we've won 4 out of 4. Because if we're honest, right, every game this season when we have done our previews, I think Palace was the only game where not all of us thought we'd win. Right? I think 2 of us thought we'd win. 1 of us thought they were going to be a draw. Every other game, I think we've all thought we were going to win them. So in that way, you know, we've sort of done what we expected to do. And, you know, we probably won't predict all our results right for the rest of the season, whatever. But I think those things that I've just mentioned are the things that perhaps I've been more pleasantly surprised about, that I've discovered about this team. And I'm just super encouraged to see how it goes. I mean, is there any... I mean, Miles, do you have any thoughts on anything I just said?
The point you made about the athletic sort of ranking, or I don't know how they did it, but, you know, kind of scoring how difficult the first set of games would be for each team. I mean, look, fair enough, and you can only play who's in front of you, but, you know, it's not like there haven't already been quite a few slip-ups this season. United have started really badly. Liverpool as well, you know, had some bad results. Chelsea got smashed by Leeds. So, you know, it's almost like it doesn't really matter, you know, on paper how difficult a game is. Like you say, you just got to go and win the games, put the points on the board, and move on to the next one. And we're doing that at the moment. So for me, yeah, like I said before, tougher tests to come, but winning games and putting a run together, that can only help kind of breed confidence and help this team to grow. So you know, that's it really. You can't do much more than beat who's in front of you. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I haven't seen that article from the other one you mentioned about the from the Athletic about you know, areas that teams focus on when they're attacking. But yeah, you can completely see it. And I think I said this, and I've probably said it loads of times to you guys, but, you know, in pre-season or during the summer, about I just expected our goals to come from. I expected the number of goals we scored to go up, obviously, right, because we've upgraded our striker, but also I expected the goals to be shared even more, or should I say, the other attacking players to contribute even more than what they did last season. So I expected Saka to get double figures again, and Martinelli to get more goals, and Ødegaard, you know, who's now doing that, to get more goals. So yeah, I can see us, you know, comfortably beating our goals tally in the Premier League last season, and exactly what you said, Raj. You know, we seem to be scoring from all areas. Even Granit Xhaka's coming in with goals, and you know, Gabriel was top goal scorer, top defender as a goal scorer last season in the Premier League, and, you know, he's scoring as well. So yeah, I can completely see Arteta trying to expose that as much as possible, or trying to, you know, use that as one of our strengths, and getting goals from all areas. And it just ties into the way we're playing as well, right? So many runners into the box, attacking in a way where we're making it very, very hard, you know, but so much movement off the ball as well. So it just makes it really, really hard for opposition defenders to almost track the runners, and you know, one-touch passing, interchanges in and around the box. It just makes really good watching, and it also means that anyone could potentially be on the end of a cross, or that final ball, that through ball. So it just means, yeah, it opens up all of the team to potentially contribute in terms of goals, which, yeah, is what we all want to see, right?
Agreed. Aaron, you when I mentioned the whole beach scenario, lying on the beach reflecting, I think the first thing that you said was about, you know, asking the simple question as to whether we have improved, whether our level has gone up. Yeah. And you know, you mentioned that you think it comfortably has, which I totally agree with you. Obviously, when you think about the level in which you improve, when it comes to the Premier League or whatever competition you're in, you also need to measure it relative to everyone else, right? So if you're improving and everyone else is, you're kind of net zero, right? With that in mind, given what you've seen so far, are we improving at a rate that's high enough versus the people that we are competing against? I.e., have others improved at the same rate, or do you think that we're overtaking any of those teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think only time will tell. I think there's the thing I think which is quite clear is there are a lot of teams now which are in transition alongside us in some way, and actually we're probably 2 or 3 seasons further along that transition. Like Manchester United, for example, they're clearly on this journey of figuring out what kind of team they want to be. I don't think they really have the squad to try and do what Ten Hag wants to do. They've bought a few players. They probably might buy a few more. That will take time to settle in. Liverpool have yeah, they won 9-0, but they look like they're also still figuring out what their post-Mane life looks like and how they sort out their midfield issues. Chelsea, again, a bit of a mystery to me at the moment in terms of where they are, because Sterling looks like he's doing well, but then they just went and lost to Leeds 3-0, which is a bit random, and again look like they might struggle for goals going forward. And then Spurs, they're winning, they're getting games, but they don't look good, and looking good is secondary to winning games, obviously. But again, they look like they're just doing the same thing they did last season, which, to be fair, worked very well for them last season. The question is, if they continue doing that and we continue where we are, have we got enough to actually overtake them? I hope so, but again, time will tell, because they are still very efficient at getting results and getting points. So yeah, I think City aside, who with Haaland have added goals and look to be just a bit untouchable at the moment, everyone else isn't perfect and is in some sort of transition. Now, where we rank along that, I'd like to think we are further along. Our defence is much more mature, one season older. We've added some goals to our attack. The midfield looks a bit more balanced. I don't know, if I'm optimistic, I think we've solved more problems than other people and than questions other people have. But it's very easy for these things to also go wrong. So I don't want to get too carried away either.
So if I ask you both that, if you recall back to what you said at the beginning of the season as to where we'd finish and where the other teams would, that would make up the top four, for example, has your mind changed about any of that? Not necessarily whether maybe you might think we finish in the same place, but have any of those other teams changed in your mind? Any changes?
I think I said we'd finish fourth. I'm trying to remember what I said about everyone else, to be honest. But I don't know. Not much has really changed. Look, it's 4 games in, right? It's so early. So it's hard to gauge. I mean, you get an idea and you start to see some of the problems that certain teams have. But yeah, it's very, very early. So for me, I don't think much has changed. I guess the one thing that's changed, which probably doesn't really affect us, or it could potentially affect us, is more, I really thought Liverpool and City would be another 2-horse race, and Liverpool would push City really, really hard. And maybe they will do that. They've got loads of injuries at the moment. And they, got a bit of a post-Mane hangover, trying to work out how they deal with that. But it looks like City might just, destroy everything in its path, or everything in their path, basically, and literally Haaland doing that. So they could just run clear, and that might bring Liverpool into a bit more of a, maybe not so much a top 4 race, but it might just mean they're a bit further off City than I thought they would be. But I think in terms of like the chasing pack for 3rd, 4th, same teams, us, Chelsea, Spurs. United's a bit of a weird one, because even though they've had a bit of a bad start, I've always said this, right? They can throw money at their problem, even if it's a short-term fix. They can, which is what they've done, and they're going to do with Anthony, it looks like, and Casemiro they've done, and they have enough. Aaron, and you talked about, we're probably, because when you said about we're a couple of years ahead in terms of our progression and on our journey compared to other teams. One of those teams is quite obviously United, right? But at the same time, United can almost jump a few places ahead on their plan just by putting loads of money into it and throwing some pretty good players at the problem.
Yeah, I think the stat today, Miles, just to back that up, I think the stat today is, if the Anthony deal goes through, then it seems like what they'll have spent this window is the same as what Arteta spent in his first 5, which I think, how many has he had? 6 or 5 or 6, but basically, yeah, they spent 230 million, I think, now in one window. So, like you say, that could accelerate it, right? Yeah,
and obviously, look, they're having to do that. They're having to overspend, as it were, or pay way more, because people know they're desperate, and teams know they're desperate. So they're getting sort of taken to the cleaners in that regard. But ultimately, you look at their squad. Before they'd signed anyone, they still had and still have some very, very good players, and sometimes that can get you to a certain point. So that probably means that they should be in the top 4 race, and I think they probably will be. So yeah, I don't think much has changed. I still think, look, we've had a great start, right? So there's nothing to suggest that we won't get top 4 based on the first 4 games, but it's just 4 games. So I think Arteta said in his press conference, like the last line he said was, be humble, be hungry, when he was asked about, kind of expectations for this season. And I think the interviewer joked about potentially a title challenge, and he just said, look, be humble, we'll be hungry, go on to the next one, sort of thing. And I think that's exactly what we're going to have to do. I think once we get to about, by the time the World Cup comes around, we'll know kind of how serious we are as a team this season and what the expectations are. But, I think you have to wait until you get through. I mean, there's no kind of Christmas period this season as normal. You have to get through, through to January, FA Cup starts, Europe starts again, see the state of the squad, and then you probably know kind of going February, March, what you're really going for, and what other teams are going to be in there with you as well. So yeah, for me, it's just so early, but I still expect us to challenge for top four. That hasn't changed for me. Expectation is top four, and I think we should get top four. Same,
Aaron, and same expectations. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, pretty much what Maya said, to be honest.
Well, Aaron, you said, hang on, wait, didn't you say that if so I'm gonna have to call you on? So didn't you say that on the first episode? No. Before we played Palace, you said, I think you said, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, if we win the first few games, I don't know how many games that was.
First three, he said.
Was it first three? Then we should be. I can't remember exactly what you said.
What he said was he said, I think if we win the first three games, won't they be talking? What they'll be talking about in the dressing room is more than top four. It'll be about challenging for the league.
Yeah, well, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think they're talking about either. To be fair, like you said, I think they're saying, like, we don't know. We could be in a title race. we could also be in a relegation battle. Like it's so early. We have no idea where we're going to end up. Right. I'd like to think we've done enough to kind of show, at least in the first four, that we're not going to be in a relegation battle. But this could very quickly turn into, we lose 2 games out of the blue, which we all know we're still very capable of doing. We could be back in the hunt for top 4, and we're chasing the top 4 again. However, we win a couple, we win our next 2 or 3. Like, we're just going to keep going game by game, and then eventually, like you said, Miles, we'll get to November, January, whatever, and we'll be like, hang on a sec, we're still floating about first, second, third, fourth, whatever, maybe 3, 4, 5 points off top. We've just we're in a title race, whether you like it or not. I have no idea. I'd love to be in a title race, but I think either way, the way Arteta sets up this team is, you go to Villa, you try and win. You go to Old Trafford, you try and win, hopefully. And I hope that is a mentality. Like, I'd be really disappointed if we do go to Old Trafford and we think, actually, this team is superior, like Manchester United are superior to us, and coming away from Old Trafford with a point is a good result. Because that is what a team chasing top 4 will do. But a team chasing top will say, if we go and draw, we've dropped 2 points.
Yeah, agree with you. Okay, cool. All right, you know what? It is going to be the end of the transfer window in a few days. So, we may record on Thursday, because obviously we play on Wednesday, and we may do an episode on the Thursday, but I think that will be when the window is closing, maybe in the process of it closing almost. So it's a good chance that if we do some business, it's going to be done before then. Based on the games that have gone, Mize, what do you want to see in the next few days? What do you want, and what do you think that we're going to see?
I don't know what we're going to see, because you just don't know. So, okay, what I want to see is what everyone wants to see, right? And we touched on it earlier when we were talking about kind of impact subs. So another wide player, attacking wide player, sorry, is an obvious one, and we clearly want one. Rafinha, Neto. There were links today with Zaha. I don't know how legitimate those links were. So for me, that isn't. It would be, yeah. I think there's going to be games this season, and there's going to be periods this season where, like, you can see it now, Saka, something's not quite right. I'm not concerned, because we know how good he is. We know his quality. It's maybe just a form thing. I mean, he's still getting into dangerous positions, and he's still doing all the right things. And there's games where, even on Saturday, he missed a really, really good chance, but the run, the kind of little trick to get the shot, to be in a position to take a shot, it was just the execution of the shot that kind of let him down. And I think that's what's happening a lot with him at the moment. But I think once that first goal goes in for the season, I think things will be back to normal. But at the same time, as Aaron was saying, we don't have Pepe anymore. It would be nice to have that option where you can just maybe rotate or maybe take Saka off, but you're not really losing too much if you do that. And so I think one of the obvious positions is that attacking wide player. I'd be absolutely delighted if it was like Neto. I really like Neto, so and obviously like age profile, Portuguese, all that kind of stuff. All really it seems to work well in terms of what we're trying to build. Zaha seems a bit more of a like, okay, we couldn't get our first couple of targets, let's go for Zaha. But he's such a quality player. Like, I love him. I just think he's brilliant. He's so good to watch. So I'd absolutely love to have him. And he'd really compete with Martinelli on that left-hand side. Like, who would you pick if you could get Zaha in your squad? It'd be very, very hard to choose between the two of them. And then the other obvious one is basically what we saw on Saturday, right? Like, we didn't have Thomas Partey. Well, I say it's an obvious one. There's two in a way, because we're talking about Xhaka, but Xhaka's playing really, really well this season. So I'm almost like, it's almost like the attention on that area, the number 8 position is kind of dropped off a little bit because Xhaka's form, and he's doing that. He's performing in that role really, really well. And he's, again, his ability to actually get in, not so much ability, but his willingness to get into the box and to be involved in everything good that we're doing going forward. That's really, really impressed me. So it's almost like a player like Tielemans, who you assume would compete with Xhaka, would be lovely to have. And I'd still really like Tielemans because, again, I rate him as well. But then there is this little bit of a concern where, you can see it happening where Thomas Partey's out for a month or 2 months, and then the standard does drop if you go to El Neni. However solid he is, the standard obviously drops. Can you bring someone in to maybe help in that area? I don't know, because you can't. It's very hard to find another Thomas Partey. You're not going to find another Thomas Partey, I don't think. So yeah, they're probably the main areas. I think apart from that, I mean, the other interesting thing is centre back. Were we not right? Maybe not at the start of the window, but right in the middle of the transfer window, were we not linked with a centre back, or was there not talk that we were trying to get another centre back? Because it does feel I
always thought that was Martinez. I thought we were that was the first main story that broke out, and it wasn't clear whether we wanted him as a left back or a centre back.
Yeah, we just thought centre backs in January, I think, but there was that guy, I can't remember, in the Bundesliga who we were linked with. Apparently, we tried to bid for in January. But I don't think anything's massively changed in terms of personnel. But we've got Saliba that's coming. I guess Zinchenko's coming there as well from a defensive point of view. But
I was just going to say, it's just a very slight concern that an injury at centre back. I know that you've got Ben White, but then it is Rob Holding is the next in line, and I guess that's 4 senior centre backs, fair enough. And we're quite lucky that Saliba's just come in and just been unreal, right? Because if he hadn't have been, then we might have looked a bit short. I don't know. I'm just again conscious of a long season, and injuries are going to come, and we don't really want. Again, we don't. Rob Holding should be 5th choice really, and you have another option there that you can bring in, and they play in a similar fashion to the other centre backs that we've got, and Rob Holding doesn't. He's not as good on the ball, obviously.
I think the other thing is we can probably play Tomiyasu or even Tierney there if we need to. I think in an ideal world, you're right, guys. You'd probably would, but I think in the ranking of priorities, we've got so many kind of half options who can do a job there for 3-4 games. I'm with you. I think the forward options, like I said, when we went 1-0 down, it was who could we bring off the bench? And it does make me think what kind of profile we'd want. In an ideal world, like you said, a Zaha type coming off the bench would be unbelievable, right? Because there's no won't he be able to handle the pressure or the responsibility. But I think for me the key is we bring in someone with a bit of experience. I wouldn't want another Lokonga type coming in, or even a Marquinhos who's not really used to the league, having to figure out that stuff. This is the type of player who we want, ideally, if Saka's not around, to be able to understand the league, know the league, which is why the Neto signing really excites me, because the Neto possibility of signing someone like him is exciting because he knows the league, he's the right age profile, and he wouldn't necessarily be unhappy being a rotational option. Zaha, I don't know, I can't see it happening just because is he really going to want to be part of a rotation-based role where he might play left, might play right? Surely someone like him would want to be I'm going to be the main guy in this team.
It's Arsenal at the end of the day, right? Do you not? It's just such a. I know he failed at United, or it just didn't happen for him at United. But I think if there was an option, if a move was there, he wanted to come a couple of seasons ago, 3 years ago when we signed Pepe. That was clear. That was obvious. But yeah, I mean, I can't really. I'd be shocked if he were to turn down a move to us, even if it means he was played. He was rotated quite a bit.
Yeah, I guess it's a second. Like, I think the way I see it is he could go and start for pretty much any Premier League. In my opinion, he's good enough to pretty much start for anyone but City, maybe Liverpool, and he would get into any of that. Everyone else's squad, in my opinion. But
not ours though.
But he would. But would we sign him on that basis? I think he is good enough to start for us week in, week out, right? In the sense that, but are we really going to do that to someone like Martinelli, to someone like Saka, and turn them into second choice options? I don't see us spending, and also the fees, the wages. It doesn't add up to me. I would love it if he came, but it doesn't.
I was just responding to the point about you said would he want to join us? And I can't really see.
Well, it's both, right? Like, I don't think we'd ever sign him. Do you think we'd sign him and say you are going to start every Premier League game from now? You are the first choice left winger or the left.
No, but I don't think he would. I don't think he would need to hear that to sign for us. I personally don't.
Okay.
It's a bigger club, European football, probably Champions League. Well, okay, hopefully Champions League football next season. More money. I don't think he and his personality doesn't seem like I feel like he's always wanted another crack at a big move at a big club, and to show that he's bigger than just being like, I'm the main guy at Palace and I do it every 2 or 3 games and you guys see how amazing I am, because he stands out because he's at Palace, he's probably, a lot of people probably see what he did at United and thought he just couldn't handle that pressure, wasn't really fancied, and it didn't really work for him being not a small fish in a big pond, but and I think he, I don't know. He's not an Arsenal fan. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up, but
I'm not sure. The thing is, before I spoke to you about it on the weekend, I actually was more in the Aaron camp of just sort of thinking like, why would he want to, but actually, I now tend to agree with most of the things that you're saying in terms of from the player's side, the desire point. From just if you imagine you just sat him down right now and you said, I'll give you a hypothetical scenario, Wilf. You either stay at Palace for the rest of your career, or I can give you one more shot at a big in inverted commas club, and that's Arsenal. Yeah, so you've just got this one more. If you gave him that one more shot, I think he'd probably take it. Yeah. If you said to him, okay, this might not be your one last shot and Chelsea might come in for you and someone else might come in for you next season or whatever, then he'd be like, yeah, this is not my last chance, and so maybe I'm going to hold out and see if someone will sign me and I've got more of a clear path. I don't know, playing Champions League football or starting or whatever, all those things. But I think you're right, Miles. I think from the player's side, if he was given the opportunity to come to Arsenal right now purely on that basis that this might be his last shot at, big or European football, whatever he might take it, I think more of the issue is going to be on the club side. I think whatever fee that they're going to ask for a player that age, I'm not sure it's on brand with what we're doing at the moment. And I do think the Neto signing, therefore the potential signing, I can see us also relating to something that you said as well, Miles, about Xhaka doing really well. I think they might look at it and think that they don't necessarily need to bring in that other central midfielder, and therefore the funds that they thought they were going to need to spread over 2 positions, are they more willing to do now to, if there is a good option as a, alternative wide central kind of forward. And Neto does play in a lot of central areas for Wolves as well. They rotate a lot, and you see Neto kind of coming through the centre as well. Good age profile, all the rest of it. He's the sort of guy that I think ticks all the boxes. So I guess it really depends on how far away we are from the numbers. I can really see Arsenal at a point right now where we're thinking that that's a good idea. To be honest, no one else really comes to my mind. Is there anyone else that you guys think is realistic that you think that you would like to see at Arsenal?
For me, sorry,
Salah, Mane?
Yeah, I know. When you asked that question,
fine. All right. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I'll just before you move on, Raj. Sorry, I was just going to ask. Sorry. So, do you guys think we will make any more signings before the?
Yeah, I think we. Okay. Let me rephrase. I think we're really trying to. Yeah. So I think if we don't, it's not going to be because we don't want to. I think we are really trying to. I do feel that for 2 reasons. One, they have been very clear that they are still in the market. They've been saying that. You don't need to say that, You know, you don't need to come out with that. And it felt like the vibes from the club are just very specific. There's some things that we specifically want to do, and we're trying to do them. And I think the fact that we went in for Rafinha early doors with, like, you know, we were willing to pay that much money for a wide player, I think shows that that is an area that we want to do business with on if we can find the right player. So I think the likelihood is, I'd probably say 75% yes. I think the fact that Wolves signed another forward today probably suggests that maybe there was something there, and I'd be really intrigued to see if, you know, over the next couple of days how Neto pans out. Aaron, you probably agree with that?
Yeah, exactly what you said, Roger, which is we've kind of gone out and said it.
Yeah.
And that's weird. Like, I think old Arsenal, and maybe we'll learn a lesson from this, actually, that maybe Arteta regrets saying this, but he's been very clear that we are still in the market and that the squad is nowhere near complete. And I don't think you say that unless you are fairly confident that whatever position it is, it sounds like it's the wide right position, that we have a list of targets for that position, and we will sign one of them. Who those targets are, I have no idea. But I also quite like that. Like, the Vieira signing was cool because it came out of nowhere. I hope we can get it done. And also, we moved on Pepe for probably the reason, which was we need to free up wages, we need to free up that position in the squad. So yeah, let's see who it is. It's like this thing on Twitter, which is like Arsenal's mystery winger. Who is it? We'll find out.
We'll find out. Lastly, guys, before we clock off, right, we've got a game against Villa coming up. So just a very quick preview of that. Now, look, on paper, it at the beginning of the season, you know, when they were probably analysing the fixtures, it probably wasn't analysed as that easy a fixture. I'm not saying it is now that easy a fixture, but I think they've started a lot worse than people thought that they were going to start. They, quite frankly, look like a bit of a mess. They lost to Bournemouth on opening day, which is now looking like, you know, reflect on that. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
I mean, Bournemouth have just been so poor since. You know, apart from beating Everton, which they did, who, you know, are also a team that are a bit random, you know, they've lost all three other games. You know, they lost to Bournemouth at the beginning of the season 2-0. They then, after beating Everton 2-1, they've lost to Palace 3-1, and they lost at home to West Ham just the other day. They are 15th in the league, but I mean, it's because obviously they got that one win. Gerrard's in a bit of trouble, I think, and they've spent a lot of money as well, which again compounds the fact that I think that he's in a little bit of trouble. So looking to this game, again, going away to Arsenal is probably not the game that you want to go do right now if you're struggling. It's a Wednesday night. It's our first kind of midweek. This is the first time that we're getting this kind of midweekness come in. We've obviously got Man United coming up the weekend after, so in just, you know, a few days after that, which means that we could see things with regards to players and rotation and all that kind of stuff. Mice, coming to you first. How are you looking at Villa? What do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction?
So I really like Villa in terms of some of the players that they've got, and I think they've got some really dangerous players. And I'm not sure what's kind of happened with Gerrard, considering how successful he was at Rangers, albeit it's the Scottish League. But yeah, I was kind of looking at how they've set up the last few games and team selection, and it seems to be a little bit all over the place, where he just basically doesn't know who his first 11 is and what his best team is, and he's trying different setups, different formations, kind of three forwards, then two up top with Watkins and Ings. So wouldn't even be able to predict how they're going to set up against us on Wednesday. But I think there's still a danger, there's still a threat. As you said, Raj, like on paper, before the season started, this was probably looked at as a fairly difficult home game. And I still kind of look at it like that. I still look at it as a team that could potentially do some damage. And like I say, especially going forward, they've got some kind of really exciting and good players: Coutinho, Jacob Ramsey, Ollie Watkins. So yeah, I'm struggling to say that I think we'll win, just because if you put this game any other time in the season, I'd probably say, yeah, we should win. It's a home win. I'd probably predict to win. I guess just because we're coming off the back of 4 wins, I'm just reluctant to say it's going to be 5 out of 5, because that's kind of bonkers, really.
It is, yeah.
So so like I do think we'll win. I guess I don't really want to say it because, like I said, it just seems a bit unreal. But yeah, I'm still gonna go with a home win. I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I didn't think Fulham would be straightforward, and I think they're going to offer. I think they're going to pose some problems. I think, like I say, they've got quality, and I think they're in a bit of not a false position as such, but I feel like come the end of the season, Villa will be around kind of mid. Like I don't think they'll be in a relegation battle or anything like that. I think they'll be around mid-table, probably top half. Saying that, I'm not sure if Gerrard will last too many more defeats, to be honest, by the sounds of it. But yeah, I'm going to go for a win. I'm going to go for another 2-1, actually. We'll go for another 2-1, and I think it will be... hopefully it won't be as late as last time, but yeah, I think it'll be a fairly tight win.
Okay. Aaron?
I'm pretty optimistic for this one, because I just don't rate Villa that highly at all this season. They just look a bit of a mess. Their team looks just not very balanced. They don't really know what kind of football they're trying to play. I don't really know where their goals are going to come from. And I think Gerrard's in trouble. So I think it'll be a nice routine home win. I'll go for 3-0.
That's very interesting. I'm going to go for 3-1. But I think it's going to be closer to maybe what you say, Aaron, and I think I feel a little bit more confident about it. I'm probably going to be wrong. I'm actually going off a bit of good form, though, in fairness, right? Because when we were talking about the game just gone, and we were talking about it, I said I think we'd win 2-1 and we were going to go a goal down, and that happened. But so I'm on a bit of good form. But here's the thing: my prediction is also kind of based on the lineup, where I predict that we won't rest anyone. So I predict that we will just play our fittest team. And therefore, if Zinni and Partey are back, like I think, they're not going to rest him. A lot of people are saying that Jesus might be rested. I don't think he'll be rested. I think, because a lot of people are sort of thinking, well, we've got Man United away coming up. So, surely you would prioritise that. And I think if the league has taught anyone anything, it's like you just cannot think like that. No, there's no way of like mapping out games in that way. We could play our best team against United and lose, and we could rest a bunch of players and we could win. Like it wouldn't be, you can imagine those games playing out, right? Like you can still imagine them. So I think that Arteta won't rest players, and I think we'll go for it. And I think that there's just too much I think we've got there's a lot of automatic at Arsenal at the moment. There's a lot of just good habits. People trust each other. The players know where they're going to be. When we're attacking, it's just like a swarm of people. Like there's just all these people in the box. It must be a nightmare like at the moment to play against. You just must. And when you're at the Emirates right now, which the Emirates, I mean, we've never been able to say this, right? I think all the time that we've been Arsenal fans, but I think we could say it now. We've got one of the best atmospheres in the country, and it's not nice to come to the Emirates right now. Like the fans are so vocal, and it's a night game, and you've got that as well under the light. So I think it's going to be fun, and I think we're going to win 3-1. Nice. Okay, boys. Thank you. It was a really fun recording. Obviously, we didn't get to record after Bournemouth. We would, I'm sure, said very similar themes. There's a feel-good factor at the moment. We've won 4 out of 4. I think we should be really happy. I think lots of Arsenal fans have said it on Twitter, have sort of come out against the celebration police, and rightly so, because all you can do is, as the two of you touched on today, all you can do is beat what's in front of you. And people don't normally win 4 out of 4, even if they are straightforward games, because the league just does not work like that. So let's hope we can make it 5 out of 5, and there's no reason why we can't, right? And then that would be a great place to be, to then go to Old Trafford, and I feel like, then that's just going to be all the same nerves that we've always had when we go to Old Trafford, and maybe we can break the hoodoo. It feels like we haven't won there in a little while. So, cool. All right, guys, listen, thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share. Really appreciate it. Thank you all. Take care, Gunners.
Cheers,
guys. See ya.